Hello, dear friends. Welcome to our fourth group session together. I'm so glad you could join me live. It's lovely to be able to be with you. So today we're going to talk about rewiring our field. And in case there's anybody joining us for the first time, we're just going to do a little recap. And as we go through this, try to, rather than just listening to the words and trying to understand it cognitively, try to visualize your own energy field and your energy bodies and how they might look. It's the beginning of us being able to tap into being able to navigate within them. So the energy field that we all have is 7 interconnected energy bodies. So collectively, we know that they form our energy field. Starting from the furthest out, we have the body of higher wisdom, which is a sort of vast, unending outer body which morphs into the universal field. And information is passed from the universal field into our body of higher wisdom and then step down through all of our fields. So then there's the body of higher astral, body of higher etheric. Then there's the heart body, the mental body, emotional body, etheric body, and then the physical body. So you can imagine that your physical body is actually encased in all of these bodies. Now, each one has its own purpose, and they serve different purposes and they operate at different frequencies. Now, within each energy body, there's a range of frequencies, and that's because if you're not optimizing your a particular energy body, it'll be at the lower end of that frequency range, but it'll never drop down into a body below that. Similarly, if you are operating optimally, then your frequency range will be at the higher end, but it will never go so high that it will tip into the next outer body. So they operate within a certain range, and you can maximize the efficiency of your energy field and the experience that you have of it by optimizing each energy body in turn. And we'll do that in our practice today. The reason that they operate in these different frequencies is to give us different experiences, because depending on the frequency that the energy oscillates at, it will be predisposed towards a different feeling tone, a feeling range, and it will hold patterns in a different way. So these 7 different energy bodies, which obviously correspond to the 7 different energy centers along the spine and up into the head, they allow for this differentiation of experience. And of course, as we've mentioned before, they hold information in the form of energy patterns. So they become the living record of our experiences, our past experiences, our present ones, all the conclusions and beliefs that we've accumulated over time up into the present moment. So in this way, working with your energy field is very helpful, because then you can access patterns that you're holding, and some of those might be from this lifetime, they might be from previous lifetimes, and they might be coming from many different other influences. Now, this is the circular form of our map, and don't worry if you can't read all the tiny words. It's not intended for this. So we just wanted to show you that when we started the map, when we created the map, it was really taken from how our energy bodies are arranged around our physical body. So this is what gave us the starting point. And then we took various aspects of our lives, such as purpose, vision, values, or mindset, or feelings, or experience, and then tried to show what are the common experiences that you have in those aspects of your life as you move your conscious attention through your field into ascending energy bodies. So this is just one way to visualize the energy bodies, as they're not layered like this, but they interpenetrate one another. So around your physical body, you have your etheric. Around your etheric body, you have your astral body, your emotional body. But your physical and your etheric are sitting completely inside your emotional body. It goes all the way through. So your physical body is actually interacting with all of your seven energy bodies simultaneously. So we've mentioned this in previous sessions, but I just wanted to touch on it again because it's important for us to remember and also to visualize all the different influences that are coming into our energy field and the vehicle through which they get there. So obviously with our past lives, we've had many experiences in our past lives that we didn't resolve in that lifetime. And so our soul will carry that unfinished business and bring it through into the present life in a sort of distilled form. It's not that we're in this lifetime we have a new body, and to some extent because of our upbringing and all the other things that we encounter in this current life, we're going to have a new lens, a new way of relating to that old unfinished business. But we've all, know a little bit about history, and we know that the history of our planet, there's been, long periods of conflict. There's been lots of wars and devastation. And so most of us have lived through that to some extent and are carrying some of those experiences, certainly the unresolved ones. We also carry the learning, the positive learning and growth that we came away with. That's also fed into our present incarnation through our soul. So it's not all negative. But in terms of why we want to rewire the field, it's because we have all of these influences, all of these inputs simultaneously working on us. And as you can see, the list is pretty long. It's quite a lot to deal with. So it's not just a case of the soul having to learn to work with a new physical body, although that is part of its work, or getting used to and working through a new lens. That is also part of its work. But if you imagine this seven-layered field that you are, it's highly sensitive, and many, many patterns within it already are in place when you come in as a baby. They wait, they're time stamped so they don't all flood in on your conscious attention at once. But as we go through our lives, one or other of these influences, and more commonly, many simultaneously, will rear their head. And sometimes we're a bit perplexed as to, we're doing the best we can, we're well intentioned, we're a nice person, we attend to our practice, we help other people, and still we have these sort of clouds that pass over us and bring us these internal challenges, and we can be perplexed by, well, why is it that I just suddenly feel down? Or why do I feel miserable? Why do I feel fed up? Why do I feel burdened? And it's because all of these influences are rearing their heads at one time or another. The vehicle is really how that gets into your field. So in our family system, a lot of what we receive is passed through our DNA, but there's also something called the family field. And if anybody has done family constellation work, you'll know that it can be illnesses, prevalent illnesses within that family system can surface in your life in the present time and give you a predisposition towards those symptoms. And that is fed through your DNA and your family field simultaneously. So we can be working through physical, emotional, and mental influences from our family system. And again, for people, it can seem like, gosh, I've got enough to deal with without, my whole past lineage weighing in and handing me their unfinished business. But that's part of our agreement when we come in as souls to try and clear some of that and lighten the whole family system. Because the earth, like us, has the same energy bodies, and the earth is trying to clear its collective energy fields. And the earth is also holding on to all of the traumas and conflict and things that have happened in the past. And those need to be cleared up in order for the earth to be freed up and be able to ascend her consciousness through her energy system. There's a lot of talk these days about generational trauma, and that is something that is passed on to us through the collective field, just like, as we've spoken about in previous sessions, the collective beliefs and behaviors that are predominant within the collective field. And even if we don't personally subscribe to some of those beliefs and behaviors, we are still living on a planet that has collective fields where those things are prevalent, are dominant. And so we will be affected by it to some extent. We're not completely free. It's other ways, it's a bit like saying, well, everywhere I go, I have my own air supply. No, we're sharing the same air supply as everybody else. And so when there's pollutants emitted into the air, it actually only takes 6 weeks for those pollutants to go all the way around the planet through the wind system. And so we're all sharing in those pollutants. So we can't wall ourselves off from those pollutants in the air, and we can't wall ourselves off from the influences in the collective field either. Nor do we have to be at the mercy of them. The more conscious we are, the more we navigate intentionally, the more we can be able to work with them and be less affected by them. Of course, that's all the historical stuff and the collective stuff. But then we get into this incarnation and then we start to have our own direct experience. And our subconscious is going to be fed by the unfinished business that our soul has brought through into this lifetime. And so then we have fresh experiences, right? Every time we're born into a new body, we have a fresh set of parents who have their own ideas and ways of bringing us up. And we're very, very susceptible to influences as a young child. So our foundational experiences are going to be extremely impactful for us. And I may have mentioned in these sessions before that it's not until the age of 3 that we develop an independent I consciousness. So before that age, when we're very tiny, we are very impressionable. We have no a means or facility to stop those influences going deep into our system and guiding the kinds of thoughts and beliefs and behaviors that we then express later in life. Then, obviously, your individual field is going to be influenced by where you're at in your conscious evolution. So, that's true for every single being. And so, the more that you advance your conscious skills and abilities, the more that that is also reflected in your field. So, you remember consciousness as a form of light. So the more that consciousness has access to your energy field, then the more conscious you are and the more light your field carries. So it's a little bit like you turning on many, many flashlights, and you're able to point those flashlights at different aspects of your field and the accumulated or historical material there, and then that will draw it forward towards you so that you can work with it, you can access it and work with it. Obviously, life has a way of triggering that connection between us and our unfinished business anyway, so we don't need to go looking for trouble. But if you're a concerted practitioner, then those people who meditate a lot do go looking through their field for where their sankharas in the Vedic system, or patterns, we might say in English, are located. So that is the basis of the Vipassana meditation, where you start at one point and you go through your whole body point by point by point, literally centimeter by centimeter. And every time you find a sankhara, you stop there, you hold your attention there, which is the same as saying you allow consciousness to rest in that spot, and you allow that sankhara to reveal itself. So it's not particularly exciting, but it is very effective. Then, of course, here we get to the identity. And we think, oh, I'm an independent person. I have independent thoughts and feelings. I run my own life. I'm the captain of my own ship. But actually, it's very, very rare that we are free from all of this. The average human being is is more likely to be feeling a sense of the active restrictions and limitations rather than a sense of freedom and agency. And this is why. Now, I don't want to depress you, but I want to give you the right information. And also, maybe you could see it as an encouragement, right? That instead of giving yourself a hard time when you have an off day, you can just remember that all these influences are coming into you simultaneously. It's a lot to deal with. And even somebody who's not, interested in meditation or discovering this, doesn't believe in past lives, it doesn't matter. We are all susceptible to this. Nobody gets out of it. So then I put this map in to show you that what we viewed before, which was the circular form of the map, now laid out as a grid. And the reason I wanted to show you this is because these are imagining we've taken all those energy bodies and we've stacked them up. And these are the same indices across the top, the same levels across the side, and the same words that were in tiny form before. If we have our conscious attention in the first, second, and third energy bodies, in survival, security, and power, we are only going to notice those aspects, our earthly human bodies. And so there is no possibility, if our conscious attention is hunkered down in there, for us to get anywhere near noticing or experiencing our true self, our innate state, our source being, however you want to language it. So you can see it's very far away from that state of unity where our body of higher wisdom is effortlessly connected into the universal energy field, and that would be the realm of the higher self, that is completely free from all of these influences. So the influences that you carry that we just mentioned and walked through, they're going to affect the first four levels of your being: survival, security, power, and connection. By the time you get to mission, you're in a completely different ball game. You've learned how to work with it. You've learned how to overcome it. You may be experiencing subtle, very, very, very subtle sankharas, but your conscious navigation is to a point where you have managed to clear up most of the material in your field. You've managed to rewire your field. So that's why I wanted to show you the progression there. To be able to experience freedom, we have to clear the repository of patterns because they represent all the old experiences, all the old conclusions, all the old beliefs, all the old identity. And the only way to clear them is to rewire the field. Now, there's I wouldn't call it a trick, but there's something that we can do. We don't have to just slog up the mountain step by step by step. Well, actually, we do. Consciousness has to evolve step by step through each of these stages and attend to each of the lessons in all of the aspects of your life. It's true. But at any moment, we can take our conscious attention into that, into our outer bodies and draw down from our outer bodies the information, the frequency, the innate source patterning, which as we bring it through our conscious attention into our present moment experience, it has this miraculous power to override the information that is sitting there from those old experiences, conclusions, and beliefs. So this involves engaging with the energy particles that are currently employed to produce limitation in our field and reassigning them to new experiences, new conclusions, new beliefs. And this is what this map represents. We don't jump from survival to unity. We slowly and incrementally shift our understanding little by little by little. And as we do so, consciousness is ascending through our energy centers and our energy bodies and is then able, as it enters into a new stage, a new level, it's able to draw down that frequency, and each stage is a little bit more facilitated than the previous one. So that's the business that we're about, all of us as human beings. Okay. If we want to rewire our energy field, we have to understand the design that we're working with. The design of existence, it gives us a roadmap. And that's pretty much what that map is. It's that you saw before. It's just a roadmap to show you how things are arranged. Understanding the design of existence also gives you a driving manual. Because if you want to get somewhere, you have to know the territory you're crossing and how to get from A to B. So none of us, if we wanted to go and visit someone and we didn't know where they lived, none of us would just get in our car and start driving, just hoping that we were going in the right direction and that when we stopped our car, we would miraculously be outside their house. So understanding the design is absolutely crucial for learning how to navigate in your field. And of course, intelligent life, specializes in the model of life, the model of existence, the structure, the nature, and the function of existence to give us all a heads up on what it is we're working with and how we can optimize that work. Another aspect that's absolutely crucial is that we have to train consciousness. There's no way around that. And we've been practicing that in previous sessions, but just to recap, unless consciousness is steadily present, we will not be able to access our presence, which is the living imprint of our source energy. So it's the aspect of us that is unaffected by all those influences and remains pure, and it's accessible. We can't jump from who we are today into living as that overnight, but that's what the evolution of consciousness is for. So we must be steadily present to be able to even have a starting point. Without that, then we're not going to be able to do any further work. We must be able to place our conscious attention at will, and this requires concerted focus. It's not a fierce kind of it's not a fierce kind of what's the word? Normally how we think of willpower, which requires a sort of effort. It's much more a serene and calm process of intending where you want your attention to be and being able to hold it there. So it's a combination of focus and steadiness. As I mentioned before, consciousness can connect to our source energy, our source beingness. And this means that the experience of doing so is not only very uplifting, but it's encouraging. It lets us know that that source energy is there, that even though we are walking around in a very heavy, constricted physical body, we have, emotions firing when we want them to, when we don't want them to. We have a mind that's a bit squirrely and running around and we're trying to catch up after it. We have our heart that opens and closes without us sending it that direction. So it can feel a little bit like we're at the mercy of the patterns in our energy field, that they're running us instead of we're on top of them. So connecting to our source energy reminds us that just because all of that human stuff is happening doesn't mean that our being has been abandoned to that. It doesn't mean that there's nothing else available. And that's why I showed you that progression on the map, that those higher levels are there, they're available, but they require us to work steadily towards them and train our consciousness to be able to hold those frequencies, those ascending frequencies, longer and longer, higher and higher, until such time as we can hold our conscious attention steadily present in our source energy without interruption or interference. So that's the big game, the ultimate game. And another have to is that we have to engage with the surface impressions, those sensations that make up the patterns, so that when we have an experience or we are triggered and something rises from our subconscious, we are able to respond to that effectively. If we don't respond to what arises within us, what is troubling or challenging within us effectively, it means we're reacting to it. And when we react to it, unfortunately, it gets sent back down to the subconscious with a little label on it saying, currently do not have the conscious bandwidth or skills to attend to this. So it goes back into our subconscious as staying in place. It remains unfinished business. So to get ahead of all of that, we train consciousness so that when something comes up, we can look at it. We're not afraid of it. We're not trying to distract ourselves or, go and eat a tub of ice cream or whatever it is that we do to stuff our experiences down. That we are able to courageously interact with it. Now, this requires us, to demonstrate trust in the design. That's why that we always start with that. It requires courage because not all of these experiences that you're going to encounter are comfortable or pleasant. In fact, most of them aren't. It requires willingness to go in there. It requires perspective, and that's also what we're trying to give you here, a little bit of perspective, so it doesn't feel like everything you're experiencing is just being pushed up into your face, that you have a little bit of room to operate. It also requires us to be optimistic, to be glass half full rather than half empty, because that's also going to affect how willing and able we feel to tackle this stuff. And it also requires us to be able to let go. If we want our true nature to be expressed, we have to let go of the patterns that our energy is currently expressing. We have to let go of something. It's a bit like that old teaching metaphor of, or teaching image, let's say, of a person who puts their hand into a jar of sweets and they put their hand in flat. They grab the sweets, but when they try to pull their hand out, it's full of sweets and the fist can't come through the neck of the bottle. And it's a bit like that with our patterns. They're woven into our identity, and whether we like them or not, we believe that's who we are. And so when we come to letting go of them, we can actually, even though you think we'd say, oh, thank goodness, take them, be gone, I'm rid of them. Actually, it doesn't work like that. many times we are fearful to let go of the aspects of our identity that we don't like because we don't know what will replace it. And we don't have a strong enough anchor in our connection to source energy to know what the alternative is. So letting go is an important quality. And the last one, I think, is forgiveness. When we are all carrying so much historical material, let's call it, all the stuff that we came in with, let alone the stuff that we've generated in this lifetime, in our interactions with people, to be able to forgive is immensely cleansing. It's immensely healing, not just for your mind and your emotions to be, done with revisiting it endlessly, but forgiveness softens how tightly those patterns are bound in your field and just creates the conditions for them to lift and lighten and dissolve. So forgiveness is very important. And of course, we have to be consistent in our practice. There's no way around it. You see these athletes every 4 years at the Olympics. We all marvel at what they can do, but we're not watching them on television every single day, getting up at 5 a.m., going to training, all the sacrifices they've made, all the hard work that they've put in every single day to get into that kind of shape and have that kind of skill. So to be really competent at this stuff, we have to put in the hours. And, you know, there is some estimate that 10,000 hours will get us to a level where we are considered supremely competent. So you might want to tot up how many hours you've sat in practice. Our evolution, as I've said before, is a lives long endeavor. And none of us are exempt from having to work with this, work with the design, work through all the historical baggage. No matter how it looks on the surface, some people look like they have lives that are blessed and very little trouble coming their way. Other people look like they can't get out of bed without running into trouble. But the universe has the most accurate and impeccable accounting system and knows exactly who's doing what and where everyone is at. So we all need to attend to ours. If it arises within our being, then it's ours to deal with. Doesn't mean it's us. It doesn't mean necessarily mean that we caused it, but for one reason or another, whether it's present life agreements, past life agreements, soul agreements, whatever it is, collective agreements, if something arises within our being, it's for us to respond to. And that just takes care of all the second guessing around who might be the cause of my misery, who I can blame, who I can get to do something for me. All right. When we undertake this work of rewiring our energy field, clearing our energy field, however you want to put it, the effects can be felt. Now, they're certainly not going to be felt after one meditation, certainly not in a lasting effect. You can have a very pleasant meditation experience, but for these patterns to clear definitively from your field and to no longer be there, no longer trouble you anymore, that takes time. So, but as they do, you can feel the progress along the way. And like any endeavor worth undertaking, it takes longer than we imagine it's going to. It's usually harder than we think it will be, but the rewards are greater than we ever imagined them. And to be really frank, we literally have no choice. So if we avoid it in this lifetime, We will just carry it forward into the next one. So most spiritual systems say, get on with it, roll up your sleeves and get on with it, because the more you can do in this lifetime, the less there will be to do in future ones. And that's really the beauty of the Sangha, which is the community of spiritual seekers, practitioners coming together. And that creates also its own collective field, which can be supportive, which you can draw on. And then certain people like to have a specific teacher that they follow or practice with. That can also be beneficial. So, however you want to free yourself and clear your field is entirely up to you. We are only here to give you the information and a little bit of guidance and support. Now, as we clear our field, these patterns start to dissolve. Now, how do you know when a pattern has dissolved? Because you don't get triggered about that anymore. You must all have had that experience. I hope you have, because it's very encouraging. Then you find yourself in a similar situation that would have caused an issue, a challenge, or an upset in the past, and you suddenly find, oh, I'm not reacting anymore, and that's it. You're done. Once you're done, you're done. It's not going to creep back in. Why? Because your level of understanding has signaled to the energy patterns and the energy particles in your field that you now think, believe, conclude, experience, feel, understand differently. And the energy particles will respond to your current understanding. And that's how we free ourselves. And as that happens, we find that instead of our core being, our presence having to work its way through all of the levels and layers and multiplicity of baggage, that our true inner state, our true inner light starts to shine through. And it's not something we have to force, it just happens, it's automatic. It's a little bit like you imagine you start with a very dirty window, no sunlight can come in. You give it one wipe, a little bit of sunlight comes in. You give it another wipe, more sunlight comes in until that glass is crystal clean. And then all the sunlight can pour through. It also means that we talked at the beginning about our energy bodies operating within a certain range. It means that energy bodies can operate at the optimal end of the range. And because they're all designed to work together, it means that overall you feel a significant uplift in your energy field, in your circuits, in your physical body will definitely feel it. And this creates a buffer so that as you're moving in the world and your mind might still be noticing things that would annoy you or frustrate you, upset you, you'll you'll still be able to fashion that thought if it's habitual, but you'll find that the thought doesn't bite like it used to. You'll find that something else comes in along with the thought. It might be greater tolerance, more compassion, more understanding, more care. It might be equanimity. It might be perspective. It might be forgiveness. It might be that you've trained your conscious attention. Oh, look, there's that old thought again. You've trained your conscious attention so you can just place it at will in your heart or in your presence, and off you move again. And even though your energy field will now create a buffer between you and the illusory impressions, conversely, it will facilitate a greater connection between you and your higher self. So you'll fundamentally feel yourself to be a different person. And this is why it's so important to be willing to let go of your current identity. The identity, no matter how, what's the word I want? no matter how tidy we've made it, socially acceptable, it looks very nice on the outside, your your identity is always going to be false. It's never going to be your true self. So we have to be willing to let go of certain forms of pretense also. Your true self is a more like a raw creature with a lot of wild force. But as it comes through a clean energy field, it's got no sankharas to latch onto to skew it out of shape, to turn into those challenges and illusory beliefs that we carry. And so you feel more connected and more facilitated, more able. You obviously feel more spacious, more expansive, more harmonious. We know all that stuff. And as your subconscious clears, because each time you deal with something, you are literally, I mean, not the very first time you deal with it, but over time, as you deal with each subconscious issue and eventually it clears, your field is no longer duty bound to express that pattern or hold that pattern. The pattern that your field holds is a little bit like a tag, which unbeknownst to us is attached by a long thread down into our subconscious. Every time the subconscious fires because it's come up against something it doesn't understand, then that particular pattern in our field is activated. And that's what we feel as being triggered and noticing, oh, something's up, I don't feel good. But as you clear the subconscious, there's no need for the line between the two. There's no need for the expression to remind you that something's up because it's not, because it's no longer there. So that's also a nice benefit. And of course, everything in your human world also feels clearer, calmer, and more stable. And that is that's a really nice benefit when you feel like, oh, even my humanness now, which is the most prone to forgetting and issues and what have you, and is the slowest and densest part of your energy field. When your humanness starts to reflect your true self, then you really know that you're on your way. Okay, these are just a reminder of the sessions that we're covering in these 6 times we're getting together. And we're currently on our fourth one, so we're kind of just over halfway through. And in 2 weeks' time, we'll be meeting again to look at being a conduit. And that's where we talk about how we can, yeah, be of uh, be of service to the sort of greater collective evolution, how we can contribute. It's a lovely topic, and I'm sure many of you will be interested in that. Okay, so we'll end this recording and we'll meet in a moment on our meditation cushion.